We weren't live a second ago. We are now.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody, and this is Lady Rage on Gaming as Usual. And tonight we have two special guests with us. The Edge Brothers on Life is a Video Game. Host, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and then the guest?
Yes. Well, I am Moab, or Mobeady, or Mob, any of those three variants, but nothing else. This is Gaming as Usual, like you already said. And we are here with the Edge Brothers.
Yeah!
From other mothers. So, yeah. And with us we have...
Dr. Stone.
Coco.
Alright.
And introduce the guest.
So
Should we introduce ourselves, or...?
Well, no,
Yeah.
Moab should have introduced you guys.
I did. They're the Edge Bros.
No. Elliot and...
Maxwell.
Maxwell.
Sorry about that.
No worries. It's fine.
They usually introduce themselves. Sorry.
No, we should actually... Anyhow. Moab, you want to tell us a little bit about them and then starting with the interview?
Alright. These gentlemen are making, or have, found them on Indiegogo, I believe. It was one of those. They have, well, I'll just call it a Kickstarter because everyone knows what a Kickstarter is. It took the name. But it's Indiegogo, and you can go there, and I guess
Hold on.
they're holding on to...
Okay, go ahead.
In case I move, okay. You can go there, you can... Oh. Sorry, my stream popped up, it scared the crap out of me. Anyway. My Turtle Beaches are loud. Go there, they are making a movie. It's kinda... They expect to make a movie called Life is a Video Game. The movie. I love how you have to add movie in the title just so everyone knows what it is. And it's very interesting. I watched interviews with you. I've watched your trailers for the show, or for your Indiegogo and everything else. I read about it, and it's very interesting what you're doing. It's more of a documentary type thing about stuff about how life could be a video game, and you based it off of a lot of things, like My Big Toe. I brought that up earlier. It's a very interesting book. I actually read the first 10 pages before I was utterly confused. I made it farther than most people, I gotta say, but I hear you read the book multiple times.
That's true. Most give up on 9. You made it to 10. Yeah, we've read it like a bunch of times. It's really gone. It started a whole line of research for us both, just bumping into the idea of the simulation hypothesis, which is kind of better known as digital mechanics or digital physics, as well as all the paranormal stuff that he touches on in those books. So that just kind of opened up a door, and we ended up doing all this research that ended up confirming, you know, his work through like mathematicians and physicists and other cosmologists and philosophers were all kind of flirting with the same idea. So that's the thing that probably started. I mean, but we were interested in quantum mechanics way before then. But yeah.
Interesting. So you, I think you're Elliot.
Yeah.
Met the author from My Big Toe, didn't you?
Yeah, I met him on several occasions. I've kept up regular like an irregular correspondence with him since 2008, when I reached out to him on his message board, and that was strangely enough, like truly strangely enough, I reached out on him on August 2nd, 2008, and the fundraiser for our film, which is about him, ends August 2nd, 2013, which was the most bizarre coincidence. But yeah, I reached out to him, met him a couple of times, email correspondence and all that kind of stuff, and he's always been an incredible sort of like advisor. And actually, I recommend everyone reach out to him. He's really open. He's kind of made an open challenge to science, And yeah, so he kind of takes on comers. He does most of his interaction on his YouTube page right now, just through the comments and everything. But his email is listed, and I mean, the exciting thing about him is it is an open challenge to a lot of scientists, philosophers, and the average person. So that's a lot of. I mean, that's definitely what attracted me to it more than most.
So yeah, I watched a lot of his seminars on YouTube and stuff that he does, and he refers to World of Warcraft a bunch, actually. And actually a couple times he stumbles over it because he can't remember what it is, so obviously...
Right. Yeah, that's my favorite EverQuest, or World of Warcraft, or, you know, The Sims. I love it when he has such a passing knowledge of video games, and yet his whole theory is, you know...
so much more easily grasped by those of us who are, like, into computer games, simulation video games. It's kind of the perfect metaphor for digital physics with video game.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, people that don't do video games a lot are just kind of confused and look at him as a crazy man half the time.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, luckily, video games is like the #1 media industry on the planet, as far as I'm aware. I think it's eclipsed movies and music.
If not, it will soon.
Gotcha.
There's a lot of zombie stuff going out recently, so yeah, everyone's into zombies now.
Hey, for the sake of our listeners that might not know exactly what it's all about, in a nutshell, and in layman's term, or as simply as you can, tell everyone exactly the whole aspect of My Big Toe and also Life as a Video Game documentary. You know, the whole idea behind it.
He means for somebody like me who's old and doesn't get all of it.
Don't throw in words over 6 syllables.
No problem. One of the running ideas in science has been, what is the universe made out of? And beginning with Democritus, it was atoms. And eventually those atoms, you know, you had a form of physics called Newtonian, in which it was billiard balls, atoms and billiard balls, right, moving around. And then later in the late 18th century, early 19th century, they discovered that there was particles and waves. So there was billiard balls, but there was also waves. And that opened up the field of quantum mechanics. Now, if you push it one more step further, a lot of scientists don't think that the world is made of atoms. They think the world is made of information. I happen to have one of the books right here called Programming the Universe. I don't know if it's going to be reversed on the feed, but this is by Seth Lloyd, and we show it in the video because that's just one of many books where people are coming out saying, yes, reality is fundamentally not atoms, but information, which gets into a somewhat of an abstract idea. Tom, who was a NASA physicist and a Department of Defense researcher, also happened to have some kind of kinky experiences with a guy named Bob Monroe, who wrote a series of books about out-of-body experience. The most popular is called
Journeys Out of the Body, Bob Monroe.
Journeys Out of the Body. There's the Monroe Institute, and Tom was one of the physicists who helped them set up their laboratories.
You might have heard of like remote viewing. That's kind of a popular idea. It was in the movie Suspect Zero.
Suspect Zero, yeah.
Yeah, and
Bob Monroe is a person who was having remote viewing out-of-body experiences without trying to. They were like befalling him like a plague. He didn't want them to happen. They were freaking him out. He thought he was going totally crazy.
Yeah.
So he wound up hooking up with Tom. Tom, who was a physicist, young physicist in the professional world. He had just graduated, and he helped him build. Tom helped Bob build his lab to test whether or not these experiences were legitimate or not, and they came up with a bunch of positive results. I mean, as everyone knows, remote viewing is a pretty kind of a popular fringe thing right now. It's in movies and stuff like that. A lot of people know it exists and so forth.
Yeah, you could just think of it as like clairvoyance in the old school. But anyway, they did experiments with this stuff over and over again, had plenty of success, made product, turned the laboratory eventually became an institute that's still very active today. And so what happened was Tom, who's this professional physicist, ends up having this kind of, you know, these kinky experiences in the realm of, you know, that you would expect like mystics and yogis to have, including kind of strange psychic phenomena. All of this without the use of any, you know, drugs. Drugs, but because that would make all the sense in the world if it went that way.
Yeah, but so he wound up having to ask himself, what is the physics behind this? If this is a real phenomenon, things like remote viewing. If reality is information, you know, these pieces are starting to come together. He saw an opportunity to make a new theory, a new Einstein's crack at a grand unified theory of everything. Only his includes things like consciousness, subjective experience, and even kinky things like remote viewing.
Yeah, he addresses free will and subjectivity. And so probably the best way to sum up his book is that he's part of this trend in science where they say reality is information. But unlike a fella here from IBM, I had his page, but I don't have it anymore. It's in this book. It's in the beginning in the introduction. They think that information is physical. In other words, that all the atoms and smaller parts, they're still physical. Tom is different. Tom says that information is not physical. In other words, consciousness, or your mind, is not a physical phenomenon at all. In fact, he's pretty hardcore with his theory. He even thinks that, you know, the classic idea that if a tree falls in the woods, is there anyone there to hear it? Well, he says if it's not being observed, then there is no tree and there is no woods and nothing is falling. That the universe literally doesn't render until your player gets there.
It's exactly like World of Warcraft. If a tree falls in the World of Warcraft woods and no one's around to hear it, doesn't make a sound. Well, no, it's not even being rendered because no one's in that particular forest.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's
that book that you guys were just showing, Programming the Universe. I read that in philosophy, and
oh yeah,
when we covered that, and we covered several other philosophy sites when I was in college, just a few years back. And my question was, because we all had to pretty much decide to ask a question philosophical to the whole class. My question was, what if everything we know is wrong? I mean, like, what if everything is wrong, completely wrong? The way we use speech, everything, understanding science has come up with is wrong, everything. And teacher like, you can't ask that. I'm like, why? Everything's being proven wrong anyways. Every time, every 10 years or so, something that science thought was actually the truth and everything is being proven wrong. So if we know absolutely nothing, and like you guys are talking about, this is programming, it's got information is everywhere. Well, what if he's right and we are just a sim or anything like that?
Yeah.
It's everything. If that becomes true, then everything we've known in the past is completely wrong.
And that's kind of why we wanted to make the film, because it is exciting in that way. Like, all of our ideologies and philosophies and religions and political bents kind of undergo a bit of a transformation if they're recontextualized. Like you're just, that's just a job in The Sims, you know? If you look at it like that, everything you're interested in, or even the world you're participating in, takes on a drastically different meaning if this is all the result of a computational simulation. So that's exactly why we wanted to make it, because it's like it's you know, it's big, it's powerful, it's nasty like that. Yeah. I always like paradigm shifting ideas and assaults. Like, the book is an assault, the theory is an assault. So that's always been a turn on for me.
But going back real quick, just to kind of finally put a cap on the end of your question about how to explain Tom's theory, it's a lot of people, digital physics, a lot of scientists say reality is information. That's not like the kinkiest idea there is out there. That's fairly mainstream. A lot of reputable people are arguing that. But as Elliot said, they argue that the information is physical. Inherently, yeah. It's physical, like an atom, like a rock-hard thing. Yeah. What quantum mechanics tells us, and what Tom's implying, is that the information has to be processed, that consciousness is entangled in the process. Yeah. But Tom takes it a step further and says that consciousness is the fundamental reality. Einstein had a statement similar to that. Yeah. He means this. Tom seems to mean it almost a little more literally. Yeah. You could consider Max Planck, who said the mind is the matrix of all matter, or Terence McKenna, who said that mind is necessary for the universe to undergo the formality of existing. You could think of Jiddu Krishnamurti, who said the observer is the observed. The whole idea is that, and this is the big tension in science right now, is that we want an objective universe, but ever since we had problems like the uncertainty principle
the observer effect, which means that the whole world is a wave until you look at it and then it becomes a particle, which is exactly like the idea of rendering. Like the game doesn't render until your player gets there. We've all assumed for since the Enlightenment, or maybe prior to that a little bit, that reality is objective, that it's material, that there's a world outside my experience. But what Tom is suggesting is that reality is actually subjective, and that the computer that processes this reality is your own consciousness. It's kind of like your little Wi-Fi antenna connecting to a cosmic internet. I know that's a lot of stuff right there, I suppose, but I guess the shortest way to say it would be that,
Bring on the question.
yeah, that you are the computer, and that you're getting a data stream, and that data stream is your life, and that you can interact with it with your intent. So yeah, that's probably a good introduction. The best thing to do would be to check out Tom's channel on Tom Campbell's channel on YouTube. It's really good, a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well,
So,
Oh, well, we
In
all
other
started talking.
everyone speak at once.
in other
Right.
words, he's saying that my brain isn't the computer, my whole brain is.
Yeah, you don't. According to Tom, you don't even have a brain.
No.
like it's not there until it's rendered.
I don't think I like him anymore.
Yeah, so like computer cycles, like the computer consciousness doesn't create anything unless it has to. So even something like your brain, like the idea of a brain in the vat, which I think is Descartes' evil genius. I think that's Descartes. You don't even have a brain. What you have is consciousness and information, and that's it. And it seems physical because the point of the program is to appear physical, which is a lot like Buddhist and Gnostic texts, actually.
Is that I remember what you're talking about, the body being like a computer program or whatever. There's actually something I read about and I studied a little bit called the Akashic Dictionary.
Sure.
That's if you have an idea and you forget it or whatever, it gets stored in this wherever it gets stored, and you don't remember it, but someone else anywhere in the world can remember your idea. And that's when you see something on TV and you're like, I thought of that years ago. And that's because you did. Just someone else just got into your dictionary and pulled it out and was like, oh, I'm going to make this happen. So
Tom makes mention of the fact that generally when a scientific breakthrough happens, the experiment is duplicated somewhere completely unrelated without them getting that. Usually, whenever a breakthrough happens, the experiment is duplicated and confirmed somewhere else,
like
without having that information. It just becomes like accessible to the whole.
Like calculus
species.
And the steam engine were discovered or thought about at the same time, and I think so was evolution, actually. So what's implied by that is that there's a kind of, Tom calls it a reality wide web that we're all connected to all the time. I call it the cosmic Google.
Or what was the phrase from the 60s, group consciousness?
Yeah, like, or you could think of Jung's collective unconscious.
Collective unconscious.
All sort of similar ideas that there's this sort of mental internet that we're all interfacing with, and that we're actually, that's our real origin, and that everything else is sort of an illusion. But it's a necessary illusion, because he goes into this idea that the life we're experiencing in physical reality is here specifically to evolve, or in other words, like level up your particular unit of consciousness.
And there's something that I'd like to bring up. It's used in a lot of anime nowadays, or actually I think two, so that's not really a lot. But the idea that if so many people think that something is real, even though it's not, if they believe it's real, then through thought process it becomes real. Which I think one of those was the Melancholy of Hiraizu Suzumiya, something like that. Japanese names. And I can't exactly remember the other one because it was the Japanese title too, just way out there. And they basically had the same idea that they put out all this subliminal messaging, which our minds, biologically speaking, not metaphorically speaking, our minds can process stuff that even our eyes don't catch. So, or maybe someone's programming that into us, we never know that. But, so we can all think the same thing. Like, what if we wake up tomorrow and then something's different, but everybody knows it's there, but they think it's always been there? It's kind of a confusing way to put it, but it's kind of how it is.
Yeah. And
so basically, dinosaurs could be real tomorrow, but if we thought they always were, then it happened.
Well, the idea is that the system isn't that flexible, that there's a rule set and a kind of continuity, but it's a fuzzy continuity. What you're describing sounds similar to the idea of like the Buddhist tulpa, which is a thought form. Like they'd all meditate on this thought form and supposedly it'd manifest. But I mean, just think of a nation, like a nation of the world. A nation of the world is just a notion that's been like mandated over and over and reinforced over and over again to the point where it becomes like a hyper real. It becomes its own meta space and it has its own consciousness in a way.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up hyperrealism because that's kind of like when you're paranoid and you see something that's not really there, but your mind is completely believable that it's there, like the monster under your bed or the one in your closet. And then you start seeing the shadows and you start seeing everything. Like I've always believed in the power of the mind. Like it's a crazy thing, and I normally don't really take in any other like I don't believe in all this other stuff. But then finally listening to your guys talk, and you know what you're talking about, and then I'm like, well, because I've been a major person in the paranormal. I love the paranormal, the fact that they're there. Maybe now I'm thinking maybe Bigfoot exists because somebody got paranoid, it spread around, and now he's just there. It could totally happen.
Yeah. Tom does suggest that what you like, that you're in that the way consciousness works is that consciousness interfaces with reality through your intent. In other words, like this right here. How is this happening? I'm intending this to happen. It's just this level of interface. But if you're feeling like you'd like to experiment with this kind of thing, you can attempt intending for certain outcomes, jobs. In other words, you just bend the probability. Like you can see that in random number generator experiments. A lot of the paranormal research that's been gone on for like the last 100 years has to do with mostly receiving information and influencing machines. And one of them is the use of, a very common one is the use of random number generators. A very interesting thing happened with them on 9/11. A very famous Paralabs in Princeton. There was this huge spike on the random number generator when 9/11 happened. So it's got this, that's like the most dynamic example. But that kind of thing where you focus and sort of bend probability.
Yeah, they have a person sit down in front of a random number generator, and it's producing even and odd numbers at random, but you ask the person to try and bias it with their intent, just with their willpower, like the Force,
Yeah, straight up.
And so what they found is that there is enough evidence to prove that if you sit a human being in front of a random number generator and tell them to have a bias towards 2s, then more 2s will come up than when they're not around, and it's a statistical percentage to prove that it is a likely effect.
Yeah, over chance.
So how is that happening? Maybe there's a telepathic field that's like radiation, we can't see it or whatever. Like that's what physical scientists would say. But,
yeah. Physical scientists would say it's like wavelengths coming from your brain.
But if reality is just information waiting to be rendered, then then it's a much easier answer there. It's like, well, it's telepathy. The whole universe is informational. It's not a physical telepathic beam going to retrieve information. It's just all ethereal. It's all informational.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a lot, or I think it's already been used in a movie, and then TV shows are using it now. One TV show, Numbers, where they have this computer that can calculate who is the next target of a specific attack. Which I think that's a pretty neat idea concept. I think Lady Rach is trying to say something.
I don't know if anybody's paying attention to chat besides just tapping back and forth. Thank you, Dr. Stone, for doing that. But there's a person in chat that says that he met Tom Campbell.
Did they identify themselves? I might know them.
It's not by real name, no.
Oh.
It's Monteshore. He says he's an awesome guy. Been active on his forums for a couple of years and went to meet up with him in Boston last year.
Cool. I didn't get to go to that one, but yeah, the forum is really cool because it sort of feels like you're in a group that's in on being on the Matrix, like being in the Matrix, but it's like a message board that's of all these people who are hip to that idea and are all kind of like sharing concepts around this, around Tom's theory. Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Now, does anyone else have any questions before I steal the show?
Dr. Stone, Coco.
Oh no, I'm just you guys are doing fine. In fact, you answered already a few of the questions I already had on my list, so I'm just going here scratching things off as we go along. But one of the things I've always wanted to that I just wanted to throw out, just from my own 2 cents, my own perspectives, is that there have been many times in my life that I felt that someone else was playing me, and they were drunk, and I've always and with what Tom
It might be a personal problem. I don't know if we can.
yeah. Oh no, that can't be it. But from what you guys are bringing out, and what Tom's work, it does answer a lot of questions that I've had before. But no, you guys are doing fine. And right now, I don't have any questions at this time. But I will have a few before we're finished.
Good. I want to hear from the doctor, man.
Coco.
Yeah, I have a question. This is amazing. First of all, I just want to definitely say that. But is there any stories y'all can share about pushback on this project? I can't imagine doing something like this and not getting some kind of hate mail or something going on.
Yeah, we got this awesome hate on disinfo.com. We were called hipsters that have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, that was awesome. It was so awesome.
Someone argued quite simply the universe is analog, not digital.
Yeah,
and of course, at least he wanted to make an argument. The other guy just said. One person said life's not a video game; it's a prison camp. And it will continue to be a prison camp as long as people are convinced it's a video game. Which I was like, oh, okay, you can disagree with us, but he's kind of saying that we're perpetuating the prison camp. That's a little harsh for a movie we haven't even made yet. But no, I like the hate mail.
Yeah, we have some. Yeah, go to Disinfo. That's probably got our most awesome hate mail.
So, well, I occasionally get a little hate mail from one of my personal friends who just doesn't necessarily grok the idea. I explain to them the idea of the movie, and they're like, but stuff is stuff.
Yeah, so
things are solid.
There's surprisingly not a lot of hate. There's a lot of encouragement, but the people who do hate, hate.
Yeah,
and they hate, and it's really.
You gotta be willing.
Good.
Yeah,
you must be doing something right.
Yeah, right. People getting upset. You must be touching something sensitive.
Yeah, I was just going to say that when you get hate mail, you're on the right track.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a question for you guys. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Please go on Disinfo and take a look at it. Add some.
Yeah,
That's like our hate mailbox right now.
Hate.
Give us some fresh hate.
With his theory about, your brain's not a computer until you activate it or whatever, would he go with the fact that if people who have part of their brains that don't work on the right side, that the left-hand side could interact and take over that?
Well, sure. The idea is that there's sort of this field of consciousness. You can think of it as an internet if you want to. But that internet is going to be constrained by the platform which interfaces with it. In other words, the internet you experience on an iPhone or on one of these little clamshell phones that I still have, or a laptop or a quantum computer. It's all the same internet, but the constraints of that system are entirely different.
Like the internet they had on Dreamcast. That was incredibly constrained.
Yeah. Wow.
That was incredibly constrained for you.
So if you suffer damage to a part of your body or part of your brain, then yeah, your bandwidth, you could almost think of Claude Shannon and his kind of idea of how does a communication system work. Same kind of thing. Like if your bandwidth, if your constraints are compromised, then yeah, your data stream will be compromised as well, and that might be control over your left hand, or you might have a stroke and lose all of one side of your body.
So basically what you're saying, in my layman's terms, if you grab a hammer and smash your router, then you have a little bit slow internet after that.
Oh yeah, you might have
just
no
a little.
internet after that. If you hit hard enough.
Just hope you don't have to call tech support.
Oh yeah, insurance is crazy.
My tech support, there's a voice in my head, but it speaks Spanish, so I have no clue what it's saying.
Oh, isn't that the worst?
The Philip K. Dick was Latin for a while on LSD. Spoke perfect Latin after a dose of LSD. He also said that he thinks
like
the
an
world is a
exorcism.
computer. Yeah, there's a great clip of Philip K. Dick having what looks like the sort of tame aftermath of a psychotic breakdown when he's in France, and he tells everyone really openly, like, this is all a computer. And the reality that we're experiencing is the one that just got actualized. And everyone, like his wife or his girlfriend at the time, which I think is his 5th or his 6th, is kind of in the audience, like really embarrassed and like biting her nails and looking at the floor, like, wow, he's really cracked. But yeah, his IT was Latin. I don't know where that came from.
It's just kind of funny because Latin is a dead language, so...
Well, that was the exciting part about it, was that he accessed this information and started speaking fluent Latin to his friends while he was on LSD that his friend actually gave him, and it like scared the shit out of him. Like he thought he was a soldier, and things that never ever happened to anyone else I know on LSD happened to Philip K. Dick, and he only had it twice, I think.
Oh, great. It's just such a fascinating.
Yeah.
What a drug.
They'll also make you think that you have to right now swap your left foot with your right foot.
We'll be passing out LSD at the end of the show. No.
Don't say that. That'll get us in trouble.
No, yeah, that's
Oh, that's not happening. Total joke.
A joke.
And just so everybody knows, I know they're joking, but I do not believe in drugs. Drugs are bad for you.
Oh, there you go.
And we do
course
not
they are.
promote drugs.
Never.
We do not.
Neither does Tom.
I know Tom is like really anti.
Tom actually says that a lot of people claim that psychedelic experiences are ways to open your consciousness up to the higher reality, and Tom says, yeah, it opens you up to a level of the higher reality that you didn't really earn. You didn't get there. You didn't get there through maturity. You just got like blown into that place, and when you come back, you're gonna have no idea what it meant or who you are, what's going on, and. So yeah, our theory doesn't promote drug use either. So it's actually
I used to write for Reality Sandwich,
it
but
promotes free will. So everyone's got their own free will, but it does not promote that as a means.
yep. Moving on.
Interesting that. Can
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Ty, or Moab, can we go to link put up in chat? We have a couple of people asking if we could have a link to their website. Get that put in.
Y'all have a YouTube video of you guys promoting this, don't you?
Yeah, it's on my YouTube page, which is Odd Edges, one word, ODD Edges, or you can type this in to your URL. It's igg.me/at/li. Life is a VG. Or you could just, if you Google Life is a Video Game, the movie, you should find it. The Indiegogo thing is where we have most of our stuff right now.
alright, and yeah, Facebook as well. That's based, it's Life is a Video Game, the movie.
Yeah, everything is Life is a Video Game, the movie on the internet right there.
unless you have a question, I just thought about a metaphor that might also help you understand Tom's theory really quickly.
Go right ahead.
Unless
I
you have
like
a
metaphors.
Well, just run with me here. You guys know the game Spore, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, Spore is obviously, So imagine reality is Spore. It's a virtual simulation of evolution. But imagine before you get to the biological part, it includes the planets crashing into each other and all the math of that. Okay, so basically Tom says that the universe is Spore, or our reality is running of a simulation of Spore. But we're not just trying to get to the end of the game where we've like maxed out all the EXP or whatever. What Spore is actually trying to cultivate and max out and level up is your quality of consciousness. So you have a little horseshoe crab. Its consciousness is very limited compared to a dog's, and a dog is very limited compared to a human being. Human being's consciousness has evolved to the level where we can comprehend an entire universe of things just in our own minds. So if you think about Spore plus consciousness, That's basically what reality is trying to do in this particular dimension, at least.
And that physical reality and the organisms that you see in Spore is actually not the result of just the physical evolution, but the consciousness evolution working in the background. And how it manifests outwardly are these organisms, extremities that you see here. You can almost think of your body as an appendage, your whole body as an appendage from consciousness. Yeah, that's great.
Or your body as a game controller, and what's controlling the game controller is your maniacal need to run through the game.
Well, one of my... Oh, go ahead, Morb.
No, I was just going to say I was kind of speechless. I was going to ask if anyone else had a question.
No, okay.
Yeah, mind blown.
One of my questions is, what exactly... Okay, after reading Tom's book, and that's the first introduction you had to the theories and everything, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What... Did you just, like, have an epiphany all of a sudden, said, we need to make a documentary movie on this? Or what was it that brought you to your project that you're working on now?
No, I wanted to find out if he was legitimate. So, I bumped into Tom on an amazing episode of Coast to Coast AM that aired in 2008. I think it's called Non-Physical Realms. And hold on, my screensaver went briefly. So I heard him on Coast to Coast. He interested me. I reached out onto him on his message board, and he said, like, you got to read the book. So, read the books. And you know, they're a challenge, and the thing is that it's not so much a challenge verbally or like by the vocabulary. The vocabulary is relatively simple. It's actually written for a mass audience. But one of the things that he says is that you have to try these experiments with your subjective mind. You have to try these things. Otherwise, you're just gonna, you know, either believe me or disbelieve me, and that's not what I'm trying to do with this model. I'm trying to, sort of like being given a strategy guide or a walkthrough, and it's sort of like, look, this is some stuff your player can do that you may have smelled around the corner. This is how you do it. So one of the things is remote viewing. So I made an informal remote viewing group in community college, and then ended up trying a few experiments with friends, and I did one out in New York City, and the results I got and the peers that I exposed it to, they always got a level of accuracy that was way above chance. Some of them got 100% regularly, and that was one of the things that was kind of telling me, okay, this requires further investigation. Then I had some precognitive episodes and dreams, synchronicity, extreme synchronicity. And then I got into modifying my intent. In other words, like, how am I approaching others? How am I approaching the world? Very similar to what you see Robert Anton Wilson talk about in Prometheus Rising and Cosmic Trigger. Yeah. In other words, yeah, right. Like, he says, go to a party and think you're the most popular guy there and see what the result is. Now go to a party and think you're the least interesting person there and see what the result is. So he's trying to get you to see what he called reality tunnels, which is a combination of both perception and intent. Tom's book took that to a new level of magnitude, and eventually it got to a point where I started doing YouTube videos of Tom, which you can also see on the Odd Edges channel right there. And it just kind of came out naturally. Actually, before I even heard of Tom and Coast to Coast AM and all this, I was having terrible insomnia during middle school, and my dad gave me some binaural beats to listen to. And it wasn't until years later where I heard Tom give this interview that he was one of the pioneers playing with binaural beats, along with his partner Dennis Menarek, who's a double E electrical engineer. So it was kind of like, wow, I was playing with this technology before I met Tom. That it turned out he was one of the instrumental guys in designing. So there's actually kind of a weird parallel between some things that I've been exposed to through him, and eventually it just kind of built up. And my thing is that he needs to be brought to the kind of more popular audience, because his tutorials and his interviews and his book, or especially the book, are all really, really great. But you know, you haven't seen him like on Joe Rogan yet, which he really deserves to be, because he's exactly what Joe Rogan talks about. I saw a performance with Reggie Watts where Reggie Watts was saying the same kind of stuff Tom Campbell says. So it seems like we're all kind of coming to this place, and the digital physics, information theory, living in the matrix, simulation hypothesis, this is all gonna it's all kind of coming to a head if you take a look at the popular literature as well as the papers that are being published. So we really wanted to make a film to kind of ease the process and to point out the model that we feel is going to be the most valuable, which is Tom's. I mean, Tom's model it's outstanding when you try what he says to try. I mean, it's really like for example, you meditate. It's kind of like you pause the game, and when you quiet the noise in your mind, you stumble upon an extended options menu. That's what it's like.
That's well put. I like that.
So we want to get people to become kind of competent. We don't really want anyone to believe us outright. We really want people to take a look at the suggestion and explore it for themselves.
Do their own research.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I highly believe. Don't, even if it's someone that you trust, you trust a lot, you still want to do your own research, come to your own conclusions, use your brain. It's in your head for a reason. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna have to try those beats because I've been using Gregorian chants to go to sleep at night when I have insomnia. So
that's beautiful. That's Gregorian chants, throat singing, gongs. It's all about getting the brain into that
that certain realm. I understand completely. You were talking about your community college experiments. Were there any specific techniques that you were utilizing for the remote viewing, or what some people might call astral projection, or was there a specific way of going about preparing your subjects for the experiments?
Yeah, I used what's been called coordinate remote viewing.
Yeah.
Which is I will pick an image from a book or Google Images, or I'll just think of a place I know, and I'll give that a designation, and that it will be a that when I pick a coordinate or an object or whatever I pick, I'll give it a code, a nonsense code like LZ475 or whatever. I'll give that to the person and I'll say, all I want you to do is pretend like you're doing a Google search with your own consciousness. Just pretend like you're querying the cosmic database. And this is what you're querying. You're going to ask, what is LVX274321? And they would sit there, and I would say, just write down any impressions you get, whether is it open, is it closed, is it organic, is it inorganic, is it complex, is it simple, does it feel good, does it feel scary? Just write down whatever impressions you got. So it was kind of a combination of the coordinate remote viewing, taking some of Tom's idea of telling them just to query the database. I didn't have them meditate. That's a ritual. It's more of a ritual type thing. Remote viewing kind of happens all the time, where someone's about to call you and you know exactly who is about to call you.
Yeah, what the subconscious mind picks up, you really don't know how much information you're gaining.
Exactly. So that was really the, and I'm probably going to put out a couple of instructions right there, but it's nothing new. It's something everyone can learn about relatively easily. The guys I studied were Ingo Swann, Hal Puthoff, Russell Targ, and Ed Dames. Ed Dames put out a DVD thing that I took a look at, but it's, I think, a little bit more information than you need to know. Russell Targ wrote the best popular book I read on it. Two of them, one called Limitless Mind and the other one called The End of Suffering, which was very interesting. Ingo Swann, who recently, continued and respawned, he's got a website called Superpowers of the Bio-Mind, which has some good papers on it. But it's all really, really easy. I really recommend everyone look at remote viewing, try it with your friends. It's like one of the most interesting things you can do. And yeah, it was easy. I mean, real easy. There was nothing clinical or technical that was really rough about it.
It's fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, but I studied anthropology in college, and that's one of the things that they were talking about is that ancient humans literally did this all the time. It was a way of life. It was part of their existence, and it was a way that that they gained information. It's a way they just lived and existed. And over time, as we supposedly gained more knowledge, we lost a lot of that primitive instinct and those primitive talents that we used to have. And only now, in the recent, like, maybe few centuries, are we gaining those back. So yeah, I understand exactly where you're coming from on that one.
And it's appropriate when you think about it. Everyone's talking about right now, the big thing is like that we've outgrown our britches. We have like all this incredible technology that's just so powerful. A person can have so much information and do so much damage, but we all feel like a great lack of wisdom and insight into reality.
Yeah.
So, so this might be topical for more than one reason, hopefully.
Yeah. We are hoping to address like several issues kind of all at once, and yeah, I think what's happened is that we have more of what Ingo Swann called AOL before there was AOL. He called it analytical overlay. In other words, we have a lot of intellectual thinking, and that's the noise. Otherwise, you just receive the signal. Like, everyone is being bathed in the signal of the cosmos and the signal of reality. The only thing is that we have a lot of chatter, or what the Buddhists called monkey mind.
Yeah.
You know.
It's what Cornel West calls moral constipation due to overneurosis.
And so if you can just allow your mind to be silent, you don't really kind of reprimand it into silence. You kind of either use a mantra.
That's a fun thing to try.
Yeah, impose peace on yourself. Try and impose peace on yourself and see if that ever works.
Stupid brain.
But otherwise, the signal is always there, and you're always a receiver. The only thing is that intellectual thought has been over-specialized. That's like the thing that we're taught in school. Like, think all day long, do nothing but think, overindulge in your capacity to think, to the point where you build up like a persona that's, part of your avatar that's totally neurotic and completely baffled and crippled in different ways, but it's just a mental construct. It's like a tulpa. It's just a thought form.
Yeah,
so the idea, go on.
I was going to say, just think of all the psychoses that have developed because of that.
Yeah, exactly. Like the DSM-4 gets bigger every year because our language gets bigger every year.
Yeah.
And go back to this is why Tom's theory is kind of like a panacea. It covers everything from physics, metaphysical questions, and even like morality and spirituality. So our movie isn't going to be able to be that panacea. It's hopefully going to be a signpost towards this panacea and showing all the interesting, neat things, flashy things to kind of show people that direction. But just real quick, while we're talking about consciousness and wisdom and so forth, go back to that spore metaphor. Okay, it's very easy to imagine biological life forms evolving to the point where their consciousness is better and they can apprehend more of their own existence. It's kind of a self-purposed system. Its own awareness is trying to be developed. Well, now let's talk about wisdom. We have a society, we have our human civilization, we have our means, our tools, and so forth. Obviously, if you were to render two simulations, one society that's based on lots of fear and greed, but still has lots of technology, they're going to destroy themselves, whereas a society that's based on openness, compassion, empathy, and love is not going to have the same situation. And right there you have morality falling out of mathematical entropy-based digital physics. You have a moral statement. A moral statement emerges in the depths of Spore. All these creatures fighting for survival, and morality ends up falling out of it.
I love what Will Wright said, the creator of The Sims and SimCity and Spore. He said models are our way to understand the world. And in fact, I don't know about you guys, and ladies and gentlemen, but when you tried. Remember the first time you played The Sims and after a week you were like, no, it's true. I can feel my meters, my interior meters, my bladder meters going crazy, Was I the only one?
No, you're not. I'm a big simmer. I've been a big simmer since Sims 1. I am still a big simmer, and believe me, both my wife and I are, and we say, oh, doggone it, my happy mood is definitely in the red today. So It's like, wow, my hunger moodlet just dropped. You know, it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly.
And it's funny you bring that up because how I talked about, I sent you a message on Facebook about that joke I heard about how when you go to a room and you forget what you're in there to do something with because you're The Sims and someone just canceled your action.
They were like, no, cancel that. You're taking too long. You gotta get to work.
I heard a really sick, unrelated joke today. You guys want to hear it?
Sure.
If it's clean enough to go on air, yes.
Oh boy.
Never
If
mind. Okay.
Keep it PG.
yeah, put it up on your website if you have to.
It's more suggestive than filthy, but I'll just keep it to myself.
But you know that when you think of life, you know, people say, you know, life is a video game. Oh, well, that's just rose-colored positive detachment and so forth. But
en contraire,
I think especially when you think of things like YOLO in our
YOLO.
culture, there's an attempt to deal with life as being meaningful and important, but also very finite. And you know, we're one step out the door, one step in the grave. Anyway, so the question is, how do you do things meaningful in life without being too engrossed? How do you have some detachment without being detached to the point where you're inhumane or uninterested in your life? And I don't know, the video game model is pretty good, and when you think of the physical world being informational, being broken down, maybe being simulation after simulation being run,
Mm-hmm.
your life becomes kind of disposable in a very positive way. You can't wait to engage your life because it is so finite. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of positivity you can milk out of this theory.
I don't like YOLO because it has too many assumptions.
Yeah,
yeah, very true.
Hindus aren't down with YOLO. That's for sure.
You only,
Excuse
you
me.
only live constantly.
Life is always waking up.
Yeah.
That's not catchy. It's catchy.
Excuse
YOLO.
me.
Evolution. No, I'm sorry. Go on.
Dr. Stone,
Yes.
what is Dracon something feathers? What is feathers talking about?
Draconic feathers.
Yeah.
He's talking about a episode of Inuyasha.
Oh,
where,
cool.
Yeah, like if Naraku sent like if Naraku sent out the fake version of him to annoy Inuyasha, except purely made. Wait, hold on. Except purely made out of thought energy.
Right. It's a golem. That's like
Yeah,
a very old
exactly.
idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Well,
And he was
That would be
mentioning something about a website earlier.
Ignore
Let me
it.
scroll up. Let me scroll up. I got so many windows open right now.
Okay, I love you, but that's what geeks do. They have a
Yeah.
lot of windows open.
I don't have half as many as Time right now, but I'm not streaming either.
Well, Time
Cypog,
normally has a million.
yeah, Cypog.net, PSIPOG.net. It was talking about the information about remote viewing.
awesome.
Go over there, and I guess they have a. There's the site's going down though, but there's a zip file that literally has the entire site on it, and that's what they're talking about is remote viewing.
A friend of mine, a very, very good friend of mine, also runs a column on Reality Sandwich. His name is David Metcalf. He runs a thing called This Week in Sci, and that's spelled PSI for kind of for the unknown, and that covers everything from remote viewing to random number generators to ghosts to all kinds of stuff. It's very comprehensive, actually. You can tell he's a fanatic about this stuff.
Well, it's funny. Something that everybody knows about me, except my man Christian Troy Baker, is that's right, I
he actually
plugged
put it out in public.
I plugged it. No, I'm huge into the paranormal. Like, I've actually studied it. I've read countless books about it. I have my own theories about it. None of them as extensive as what you're talking about. So all my words are probably under 6 syllables. But
Best kind of words.
No, but we're the same way, absolutely. I was into UFOs before I was into remote viewing, and then finally got into Tom's theory because it's just like it tickles you. It's like, who knows? But what if it is? Isn't that awesome? Like, maybe. So I always loved watching like the UFO specials or the remote viewing specials. I get mad if they're like wasn't really good tasty information. Like, oh, I've seen this one before.
I know all
This
this
is
crap.
bull crap.
Yeah, give me something new. I need new.
Exactly. So I was just going to say, it's always great to read about like a remote viewing program that was officially part of the U.S. military
There you
and
go.
stuff like that tickles your brain. You're like, wow, a lot of people really seem to think this is real, including like the military, who
Dumped like millions of dollars into it.
it's the last people you would expect. And so that's all fun and all, but nothing is quite as fun as trying the experiment yourself.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
getting some positive hits and having the whole experience of it. I mean, you want to get into the X-Files Twilight Zone,
Yeah, I got someone
So-
here saying Project Stargate. That's absolutely right. Stargate, Scanate, Grill Flame. Those were many of the code names they had. Yep.
What was the one that I don't remember the name that they called it, but Russia? And in fact, I think they're probably still doing some of the experiments of remote viewing. But during the Cold War, they were very big, and that's what prompted a lot of the U.S. involvement in experimenting with remote viewing. Was what the Soviets were doing.
Exactly.
Right. I recently interviewed Russell Targ, actually.
Yes, yes. I interviewed him for about 90 minutes. He was very it was very nice of him to do that. But yeah, it was they overheard that the Russians were doing it, and they were like, "Oh, those silly Russians! Let's prove them wrong." And then, of course, they scare the hell out of themselves.
Yeah. It's like,
There was
I
a
can-
joke they used to circulate around saying that they would do a remote viewing experiment that was so good they would have to retire to, they would call it a 5 martini result, where they would all go out and just get drunk because everyone's like reality got cracked and they just, they couldn't handle it. It was really, so you'd like, oh man, it was just awesome stuff. There's a great book by Jim Marrs about it called Sci Spies.
But when you talk about military doing crazy ideas, that just reminds me of the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats.
That's what
Yeah,
that
I
movie's about.
I was just thinking about that one too. I can kill a goat.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Cloud bursting.
God, yeah.
The one rock in the middle of the desert.
And he found it. Oh, but getting back to one of the things you were talking about, how as far as on the conscious level, we're all reaching the same point, but just at different times. It kind of likens it to people who play games on easy mode, people who play it on normal mode, people who play it on hard mode. They're going to get to that point all at the same point, just a little differently depending on how well and how hard you're making it on yourself.
Yeah, hard mode would be like you are born without any limbs, starving in Africa. That's hard mode. That is hard mode. Anyone who thinks I gotta tell you, probably most of the United States is on normal. Would be my guess. Normal to easy to medium hard. But like hard mode is like being born with dysentery. Like that's
In a third world country while you're blind and deaf. Yeah.
So basically, if you own a smartphone in the US, you're on very easy mode.
Likely.
Likely.
It's actually, I did research. Smartphones have better processors than my desktop computer.
Get out of town. Is that right? I don't have a smartphone. I have one of these clamshell phones right here, and when I got it, I went up to the guy and I said, "Do you have those smartphones?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." He took me right to it, and I was like, "Wait, no. Wait, I want something with a learning disability. I don't need
What's this guy hopping around Starfleet like that for? No one notices? It's like jumping all over the place.
You guys watching the game stream?
Well, we want Star Trek to happen. Like, that would be great. I mean, it doesn't have to happen, but it would be cool. I'm definitely on the Star Trek agenda, like the peace, exploration, no money, like better yourself, end disease, end hunger.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Vulcans, green women. I'm all on this like agenda. In fact, I kind of think that thing in Torchwood. You ever watch Torchwood? You guys see Torchwood?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, and
Yeah.
Doctor Who.
Oh yeah, unreal, right? I love it when he says like, "What's the destiny of mankind?" It's like to go out and I mean, when you think about it, we've been on this planet for a couple of million years as Homo sapiens sapien. I think maybe, depending on who you talk to. I don't know. Who knows? But we're doing a lot of inbreeding here, guys. I really think we need to bring on the aliens, because, eventually we're going to be totally cross-eyed. But
It's something that
that was
keeps me
like throwing a stone down a well.
I guess. I mean, if you think about it, if two people started off, then we're everyone's cousin of some time or another.
Well, yeah, I think they said that the human population was down to about 23 or 30,000 in Africa before we had our mass migration, so we are all pretty damn related.
Yeah. Well, shoot, they've already proven that with genetic research. There's a geneticist who's also an anthropologist. I think it's like a 5-year study where he went around the world, literally, collecting genetic samples of people, finding the markers, the genetic markers, and found out that we all related. We can all be traced back to, it was about, like you were saying, about a certain tribe in Africa. He was able to trace all the samples he took of humans all over the world, traced it all the way back to this one specific tribe in Africa. So, I mean, that right there alone is like, it's hard to dispute that kind of, those kind of statistics. And it's like, yep, we're all from one tribe in Africa. We just got lost somewhere along the way.
Smaller than the population of New Jersey.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine New Jersey, like, warring with each other over who's who. Like, my goodness. So small the family was.
Oh, that's marvelous. I was wondering, do y'all have any, I mean, what do you guys think about this? Because we've been living it for like 5 or 6 years now, and just been trying in our own ways and different things. Like, personally, I like to incorporate things like I like to invent my own little meditations and tool sets. Like, you could take a look at something like, chakra yoga versus the power of positive thinking versus Western mysticism, and they're all basically talking about the same, or Egyptian magic, and they're all talking about the same thing, which is like intent influencing outcomes in reality and things like that. So I mean, I don't know how I got there, good gosh, but I was wondering what do you see, because we're familiar with this, we're used to this. This is us like engaging the outside world sort of finally on these issues, and we're kind of curious as to what the flavor is. Like, what do y'all think?
Just real quick, I'm going to use a little bit of onomatopoeia here. But
that's what you think?
Can we quote you on that, Moab?
Yeah.
And how would you spell that?
Google. Anyway.
Google.
That's pretty ridiculous. I've been thinking not much, and like, your point of view, it's not really. I haven't been thinking deeply into it. I don't read up on it. But every once in a while, I like to question myself a little things, and I even push my faith across the line a little bit. And a lot of things I like to do is put two things and compare and contrast them, kind of like what they do on that TV show, The Finder. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but basically they put two things on, and then they have a discussion about it. And but on the show, they do something like Pirate versus Ninjas. They do it something very simple, but I'll do it like I'll do paranormal with myths, and then I'll try to compare what's paranormal, what's a myth, what's the fine line, because technically some cross them both categories, some don't. And then sometimes I'll be like, well, what's real and what's imaginary, and then I always come to the conclusion, well, technically everything is imaginary. So basically that was my input. I've always kind of thinking the same way. I just less than 6 syllables.
Doctor?
Well,
the author is totally
Yeah, I think that sums up us all. This is just amazing, the whole idea. I really am I'm ready for this movie. I'm ready for this documentary so I can further blow my mind, if that's possible. Like, blow the pieces that are left. I don't know. But yeah, this is an amazing idea. Set of ideas.
Good, because our hope is to make something that is shocking and entertaining enough to make people want to go and sit through like the 30 hours of Tom's lecture and read the 800 pages of his book, like something. but hopefully you'll get enough of a taste from our movie. Get some bearings as to the neighborhood.
Yeah, this is really a signpost for Tom's work. I mean, first of all, there's no way we could bring in all the, I mean, Tom talks about teleporting. Like, how do you teleport? You know, I mean, you get to like, what? So, I mean, he goes, and then he's talking about relativity. So it's incredible where he goes. There's no way we can really cover all of that in a film, but we're gonna try and go over like the broad strokes. In other words, like Tom is got the strategy guide. We've got like the user manual that you guys like comes with the game.
the little two-pager that comes with the game.
yeah. But I mean, it's like if you got a strategy guide that's also got like Python and C++ tutorials and like every like how to hack it down. I mean, that's what Tom's got, and it's really worth your time. It's really worth your time. It's no short than that. I would definitely describe it as a like a walkthrough to your player. And again, like everyone, there's no need to like believe or disbelieve anything. The important thing is to actually just look. Just look. In fact, any kind of skeptics we get are like totally welcome. Any critics we get are totally welcome. But if they're just gonna kind of throw mindless Soviet propaganda style vitriol at us and not take a look at evidence and things like that, well, we would know like where they're coming in from. You know, like Shermer, for example. Like, I'm sure I'm way below his radar, but but you know, when it comes to like, for example, he did this Larry King show about UFOs, and you know, he's like one of these popular skeptics. I think he's the editor of Skeptical Inquirer. But you know, they had Stanton Friedman on there, who's a nuclear physicist who's worked with tons of classified programs, and I think he's worked for like guys like Lockheed Martin and McDonnell Douglas and all kinds of stuff like that. And he's a UFO scholar who's talked in every state. I think he's given something like 400 lectures or something like.
I've seen some of his lectures. Yeah, I've seen some of his lectures.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry for being quiet when you were asking us what we thought. I thought I'd pushed the right button for push to talk, and I hadn't. I was sitting here talking to myself, which is nothing new, but it just.
Old.
Oh, let's.
Yeah, I'm old.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
But no, it's a lot of the things that Tom talks on and that you guys are trying to bring out, and some of the others that have written on. I mean, everything that we've been talking about are things that have more or less been developing in my mind since I was a child. I had kind of a very unusual childhood, a lot of free time living in the forests of southwestern Colorado, and with an active imagination, you go to some really strange places. And
Ain't that the truth?
yeah, well, that's how my books came about. But anyway, no, it's something I've always believed in. It's always been there, and I know you guys can probably confirm this as well. Is like you have these ideas, these thoughts in your consciousness, and you can feel them in there. It just because of your lack of either education or your ignorance with life, you can't quite express what it is you're feeling within your mind and within your subconscious. And then you have someone like Tom who writes, you know, My Big Toe. He can put it in a nutshell. He can he can put the words to those feelings that you're having. And with when I started first looking at your guys' website, I was thinking, you know, I remember when I was a kid and hanging out in the trees in Colorado, you know, where I grew up. I remember having these feelings like the what ifs, or, you know, what is my brain trying to tell me? And there have been times that I would turn the trees into imaginary friends and have these deep philosophical conversations with them just so I could hear my own self think. And gets back to, you know, if a tree falls in the forest, is anyone around to hear it? You know, it's like, well, if you talk to the trees, they'll tell you a lot more than you realize.
Damn right. I can completely relate. Half my life is in the New Jersey suburbs. The other half is in Brooklyn. Woo! But, you know, those trees and those birds, man, you can, like, tune in. I mean, do you ever see I mean, you know, at one part you could say, yeah, maybe it's your own mind and you're understanding yourself. But did you ever see the documentary film, The Secret Life of Plants?
Yes.
Yes, I have actually too.
For those of you who haven't seen it, take a look. Just like a really brief mention, they take these plants, they hook polygraph machines up to it, and they do things like they burn the plant with a lighter. And they would have one sign, and every time they burn the plant, the polygraph would go up and down, up and down, up and down. Now, they only had one guy, one designated scientist, do the burning. And the plant got so sensitive that every time the fellow walked in the room, let alone burn the plant, it would go up and down. The polygraph would go up and down. The other example that I love is, same thing, polygraph machine on a plant on one end of a building, at the other, in a room at the other end of a building, they had these brine shrimp, and these brine shrimp were over a pot of boiling water, and they had a randomizer machine attached to an arm, and the whole idea was at some random point in the night, the brine shrimp would be poured into the boiling water and killed instantly. So the scientists, or the researcher behind this, set up this experiment, gave it a shot, random time, so his conscious mind wouldn't have influenced it, you know, like I know at 10 o'clock everything's going to get killed. Instead, just set up the thing, walked out and had a timer connected to the polygraph machine and the plant. And of course, when the brine shrimp all got killed at that whatever point of night, the plant polygraph thing went up and down, up and down, up and down. So they're entirely sentient. In fact, all reality is conscious. Like the whole show is conscious.
Everything's connected.
Yeah, the whole thing is connected. This, you know.
And you guys know the double slit experiment, of course, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's an instance of material particles responding to consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And if they respond to consciousness, it sort of implies in a way that they have a kind of consciousness to them. Either that, or they're so sensitive. I mean, the idea is that they're so sensitive that when you look at them, they respond. But the crazy thing is that they do respond. So,
yeah, the evidence is there. But and getting back to when I was growing up in Colorado and all these.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I want to hear about Colorado.
Oh no, that's quite all right. But it was, and not to plug my book, but it is one of the basis of the books that I'm writing, is that everything is connected. I don't go into a lot of the detail, at least not at this point. I do explain later on in the series, and I don't want to give it away at this point.
It's about 7 or 8 syllables.
But it's everything that you're talking about here, and with the connectivity of all things, not just plants, but raw matter in all of its forms. You know, there's that connectivity with everything. I address that in my own writing. So, yeah, I mean, what you guys are like a breath of fresh air for me, because you know sometimes you find yourself surrounded with a lot of closed minds, or you were talking about the skeptics, and it's okay to tell me it sucks. Just tell me why. Tell me how. Give me more than just it sucks. You know, show me that you have an intelligent thought behind it sucks. You know. But that's pretty much where I stand. You know, where I come from. Where I come from. You know, I came growing up around nature, plants, animals, trees, and some of the things that I did as a child with like the herd of deer that would come through every year during hunting season. They came through our property because they knew we had no hunting allowed on our property. And the interactions I was able to have with wild animals, with the plants, and the things that formed in my own subconscious, you know, growing up as a child, it was frustrating because you could not put it into words where you could explain it to someone else. But nowadays, you know, as I've grown, educated myself, and opened my mind to other thoughts and possibilities, you find those words to express those feelings that I had in my mind. So, like I said, I'm on the same page with you guys, and definitely I'm looking forward to your movie. I'm hoping that you guys definitely get everything you need to put this together, because I think this definitely would be awesome to see, and would also help a lot of people out there that might be having trouble, you know, like if they get Tom's book and it just don't even make it to page 10, as we were talking about earlier. A project like yours would be very good, because you'd be able to put the information out in a way where they could understand more of what Tom and other scientists like him are talking about, and who knows where it could go from there for an individual.
Yeah, his good news. His book is either out or about to be out on audio. He recorded the whole thing himself, and
that'd be cool.
Yeah. So instead of like lugging around those 800 pages, which I know can be a pain, that's coming out. Otherwise, he's got his lectures and his interviews, which are rather clear. I definitely end up recommending the text. You do have to kind of get into it a bit, but when you break that, like, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 page stride, and you really get into what he's trying to allude to, especially book 2, if you can get an idea of the concepts and then go into book 2, that's when things kind of are all about really user interface and how does this relate to what he calls the big computer. This idea that you have a big computer that's conscious, and then it breaks itself up into these like smaller constrained forms of consciousness, like a fractal, and then those consciousnesses are subjected to physical realities, which you can think of as levels or games, and that those games inform it on its evolution by choice. So his whole idea is that you evolve by your choice, just like in a lot of video games out there, like I think like Knights of the Old Republic, or I would love to ask you guys. We could use this. Can you think of any games out there where like the choice you make, like good ending, bad ending, like good guy, bad guy, like Fable, like stuff like that, off the top of your head?
Oh shoot!
Did you say how many, or?
Well, just like, could you name a bunch out there? Like, we're kind of retro.
Well, Guild Wars.
Guild
Wars 2 definitely addresses the issue of choice, player choice, and your choices. And I also play Guild Wars 2, but your choices do create different outcomes, and the experience really isn't the same for each player, depending on again your choices and how you play. So that one there is probably one of the most recent. There have been many games out there where multiple choices were available to you. And depending on what you did, how you played the game determined what your ending was going to be.
Probably the most famous of those is Fallout 3.
Right.
Because there's, I think, millions of endings to Fallout 3, because it's like a slideshow in the end. It's not really an ending. But it reflects everything you did during the game. It reflects, and it's like, oh, over the years this happened, or over the years this happened, depending on if you slaughtered the whole town or you didn't, basically. It's what it goes by. I'm very evil in video games. Don't know why. So I was the person in Fable that was fully evil within the first 10 minutes.
Killed all the chickens. No.
Don't do that on Zelda, though. The chickens fight back.
Oh, that's right.
That's the plan. There's
Skyrim's another one that does choices.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep. Skyrim.
Really?
Time's a big Skyrim player.
But that really ends the same, doesn't it? Every time, or does it?
It depends. If you get the mods and stuff, not the mods, the DLCs, because like you can choose to be vampire and end it that way. You can choose to be werewolf, end it that way. You can choose to be neither. There's no real like dynamic ending video or anything. It's just you can end it differently and watch a couple of different cutscenes throughout it.
And recently, Black Ops 2. A lot of people does not know that there are multiple endings because they play the game like they usually play it. But if you do all little side missions that they give you, those little like RTS type missions where you control units instead of just one person, then you'll get a different ending if you complete all those and pass them. And a lot of people don't know that. Or, spoiler alert, if you shoot Mason in the leg instead of the head, he survives.
But there's been, ever since I remember one game, I don't remember the name of it. It was a space adventure game on the PS1 that, again, depending on which mission you chose, how you approached the mission, how you succeeded or failed the mission, determined the storyline that you were following. So, and there were multiple endings in that. I know because I played that thing for months, and each time I played it, it ended a different way for me. So it's something that I know game developers have approached on many occasions, the multiple ending, the free choice ending in their video games. And they're fun. Those I enjoy the most because of each time you come back and play it, it's not like, turn left, turn right, shoot here, shoot there, throw a grenade here. It's like, oh, I threw the grenade there, it didn't work this time. Why not? It's like, this is different. So it also kind of justifies the price tag you pay for the game. It's like,
yeah, I hate it when people complain that there's an awesome open-ended game for the 360, and people were complaining because it's 1,600 Microsoft points, which is the equivalent of $20 US. But there is, I think, tens of 20s of hours. That's really scientific, but there's just so many hours you can put into this game, and then people are complaining, why is it so expensive? But when you can go out and spend $60, $70 for a game that's maybe 4 hours long.
Right.
Which, if you don't know, the Metal Gear Solid spin-off was only about a 5-hour campaign. Where you play as the Jack the Ripper, that guy.
Well, more like, I think, like, if that game Prototype is that the one where you have like the crazy powers, and if you use them to kill civilians, like you become the dark Prototype as opposed to the kind of like popular good one, right? Is it that one?
No, I don't think it's Prototype. You might be thinking of Infamous. Prototype, you transform and stuff. I don't think there's really multiple endings. People fear you either way.
Oh yeah. Fear you. There you go. That's part of what I wanted to go into. The idea that like if you use your abilities as a player for negative means, and you kind of focus on that, then that's sort of the game you'll end up playing. That's if that's the ability and the way you interact, that's kind of how your game and your ending will end up looking.
That's just called life.
A really good example. And you could do this. A really good game that describes those meanings is really Infamous 1 and Infamous 2. Because if you go around, especially in Infamous 2, because that's really when they got it's kind of like Fable, where you get the evil powers or the good powers. But there's a lot of things to where, and Infamous, that if you do a lot of good things, people actually cheer you on the street. They'll cheer for you. Or they'll actually help you in combat sometimes. They'll do all these epic things. But if you go around and like killing people, draining them for more powers, because you actually have to kill them to get more powers and stuff. And BioShock does that as well, but people don't really fear you. You just get different endings. People will actually run away from you. They'll throw things at you. They hate you, and then you blow them all up, or throw cars at them. Just get out of my face. Yeah, I think the one you were thinking of is Fable, because Fable is pretty awesome. And even with Fable 3, which is the one that actually Fable 3 is free to play, I think, on Xbox 360. Right now, you can download it for free, but it's pretty awesome because, like, I'm sure you played a Fable game, so when you start killing people, horns start coming out of your head, and in Fable 3, you even get demon wings at some point. Which is pretty cool. You can't fly or anything; they're just there sometimes. But the best thing about it is I had Fable's The Lost Chapters. I don't know if you played The Lost Chapters, but with multiple endings things, you can play the game the same way every time, and the ending can be different depending on what you choose at the last second. Because in The Lost Chapters, you kill Jack again. Sorry, I didn't say spoiler alert, but
I love that.
Spoiler alert again. You get this mask in the end, Jack's mask, which is the storyline was that's the thing that made him evil. You get to choose to put it on, or you get to choose to throw it in the lava and get rid of it forever. And even if you're fully good, you put on the mask, everybody hates you immediately. So that's a pretty funny thing at the end of that. I put on the mask because then it lets you get the good sword and the evil sword too. So I have both swords.
Just to go out right here, this Star Trek game is beautiful. Like, now that you're out of that hideous spaceship and like visited the world downstairs, and like, I love this map I'm looking at right here. It's groovy.
This is the first time I've actually played it, so.
Yeah, I've noticed that like you haven't killed hundreds of people yet.
So is this something that's going to bring you guys out of your retro gaming niche?
I don't. You know what? The only thing that'll get me to buy a PS3 is when a PS4 comes out. That's yeah. You know what I mean? Because I'm not going to sit there with everyone and pay $600 and then blow all this cash on
And
games.
plus,
It's
then
not gonna happen.
years later, when everyone's bored of it, we can be like, "Oh,
Yo,
Assassin's Creed!
you played Assassin's Creed
It's
yet?
amazing."
I love that you brought that up because I was about to mention, yeah, when you see that movie that came out in like 2006, and then you always want to talk to someone about it, but they're like,
Right.
"What movie are you talking about?" I mean, that one I watched when I was 12.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I don't watch television.
I was like, I waited for it to come on TV. I mean,
Yeah. What's the name of the theater you go to? My Television. That's the name of the theater I go to. I like
it
popcorn,
seems
I
like
go to that.
nowadays, just to wait for it to come on DVD, you're way behind everybody.
Yeah,
So-
talk about-
When do you when is the estimated date for your movie to be done?
Oh, thank you for asking. Well, at this point, we need to raise funds, and I'd just like to let everyone know that you can go onto our Indiegogo page, type in "Life is a Video Game: The Movie," and you'll find us. And this is to everybody. If you donate $1 or more, you have the option to being listed in our arcade-style high score that we're going to put at the end of the game with your favorite 3 initials, whatever they might be. And yeah, so the first thing, before we are able to even begin shooting, we have to raise some cash to get down to Alabama and bring a crew down there and then post and all this kind of wonderful stuff. Right now we're raising the shooting budget, but yeah, we're taking, you know, from $1 and up, you know, and if you want to it's totally optional to end up on the high score, but you know, we thought that'd be kind of fun, you know.
I read that on your website, and I thought that was a cool idea.
yeah, we want to kind of, you know, I mean, I thought that would just be awesome, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, even when you kind of think about, like, you know, we're spending a lot of time thinking about how to edit and present the film. We haven't even shot it yet, but it's kind of like, wow, like, when should we use a heads-up display? Like, should we have checkpoints? I mean, like, how much of, like, this video game stuff should we incorporate? Should we not do any? Should we do a lot? Should we Tarantino up some moments? I mean, there's, like, it's sort of a geek's paradise.
I believe you should throw in a whole bunch of internet memes.
Oh, that's
yeah.
probably going to be impossible to avoid. I mean, if we're going to try and make anything for this generation, you know, it has to reference the internet.
Yeah,
I'd-
exactly.
I'd really love to get
The
like,
reality wide web is what Tom calls
Yeah.
it.
I'd love to get footage from like games like The Sims. I mean, that would be amazing. I got to figure out what the issue is on using in-game footage for a documentary. I haven't checked that out yet, but something kind of like that Scott Pilgrim film, but a little less.
Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, just a little less. You
You're
know,
gonna
but that
have
had moments in it I really liked.
You're gonna have to get footage from the new game. I forget the name of it right now. It slipped my brain, but you can, as you're playing it, like you were saying, good, evil. It's an MMO. Like a town starts getting attacked. You can actually choose to like save the town and go in, or you can choose to side up with the bandits and attack the town yourself. And based on your actions is how those town folk will react to you.
And you see, so the reason why I brought this up is this is what Tom's theory is that we're all playing this game as human beings, and the whole idea is what do you use your choices for. So that's why I brought this up, is that the whole idea is to evolve consciousness. In fact, his theory opens up with 2 assumptions, unlike string theory, which opens up with, you know, I think quite a few. I mean, one of them is the assumption that strings exist. Anyway, the idea is that consciousness and evolution, that evolution is a fundamental process of reality, and consciousness exists. So that's the assumptions in his theory. The whole idea then is that the reason why you end up with physical realities that are highly constrained, like the ones we're experiencing right now, you know, with, you know, our F equals ma, and, you know, E equals mc square, and our gravity falling at, you know, 9.8 meters per second, I think it is. The idea is that you have a really constrained system like this, so you have feedback. And the whole idea of feedback is to show you, like, what happens when you make certain choices, and the intent behind those choices more than anything else. So his whole thing ends up like this. Consciousness evolves. And the way it evolves is by becoming better organized. Which he uses the word entropy. When it's incredibly disordered and chaotic, you can think of it as having a high level of ego, a high level of fear, and having blocks like beliefs and both disbeliefs. That's his kind of idea of what you call a high entropy, very chaotic system. In other words, the information isn't organized, and we all know that if information isn't organized, it's meaningless. It really can't do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pointless.
Same thing with energy. Energy and matter have to be organized in order to do work.
Yeah.
Water in a jug can do more work than water dispersed throughout the atmosphere.
Yeah. Yeah. So if it's information, if it's energy, if it's just a language or a symbol set, if it's chaotic, it's useless. It really can't do anything. So of course, when you take a look at take this idea of a consciousness system. The opposite of that is, a highly ordered consciousness. And it doesn't mean like it's totally anal retentive. It means that it's, it sees the bigger picture. What is the bigger picture? Is that we're all, like you said earlier, we're all kind of intermingled, aren't we? Like there's one fabric of reality that we all share and that we're all part of and that we all depend on each other for, and about. So the other end of it, so a very powerful consciousness is one that's more love-based. So it cooperates, it cares, it's concerned about other. It realizes it's a cell in a tissue.
It nurtures itself.
If all the cells try to hoard all the energy for themselves as opposed to working together,
exactly.
What happens if your organs were fighting each other?
Yeah. Like what would that look like?
My two kidneys are having a battle and I'm losing.
Exactly.
Well, I hope that's not true, but that's
no. just an analogy.
But looking at this video game here, it's making me think to have any kind of simulation, you need to have restrictions. Like, what would a video game look like with no rules? Well, you could fly through asteroids. You could fly through other ships.
Yeah, God mode gets boring.
Your lasers would fly through things. You have to have constraints, but you also have to have randomness. If this game was completely constrained, and if it was like Final Fantasy VII, where you just like click attack, and that's like the extent of your free will with the attack. In this game, you can kind of move around. So systems are all about the chaos and the order kind of intermingling enough to make an interesting experience. There has to be enough randomness and free will for you to have an interesting feedback with the game, but there can't be too much freedom, otherwise the game would just fall apart. It wouldn't. Yeah, you have to have a point. If we have the kind of hard determinism that you have materialists and contemporary atheists sell, or where there is no free will, everything is deterministic, and that there was no origin of these things, there was no prime mover or what have you, or whatever the hell they're kind of peddling right now. I don't know. I know Sam Harris is the big kind of guy right now. Like, it's fun. Like talking about materialism with someone is kind of like spinning a top. It's really exciting when you get to like, well, what are you really saying? So, but, for example, you have to have a little noise, a little randomness, otherwise your free will is kind of pointless. In other words, too
constrained. Like you're just going to have a response, not B, not C, not D. Look at Pong. You had two choices. That was it.
Whereas at the end of Fallout or whatever, you have 3 possible endings you can go for and a million different ways you can play the game.
Yeah. So, let me see. Let me pull this thing up right here. But, so the idea is that we're all, according to Tom and his theory, we're all kind of leveling up, increasing the quality of our consciousness to be something more peaceful and loving, not necessarily totally a pacifist, but, one that's kind of engaged with this bigger picture, that you're a cell in a tissue, and the way you interact with the rest of the cells is going to determine the outcome of that tissue. And what's kind of interesting about this is, like, let's pretend Tom isn't right. Right now we have the internet, which is giving us godlike powers in the sense of I can see any place on Earth with Google Maps, and I can know just about anything I want through Wikipedia. And those are kind of, godlike appendages in a way, right? Now, if you incorporate that with the kind of power we have in the sense of we can wipe out an ecosystem with either an industrial accident or a weapon, but overnight. I mean, like the Gulf of Mexico, Fukushima, like we can wipe shit out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, instantly.
Yeah, we can, I mean, remember when Fukushima happened? Like everyone just woke up and looked and like, wow, there's a power plant that's like polluting the whole planet, and there's like nothing we can do. Just look at that. So we have these, you know, Peter Parker enter, like we have all these godlike powers, but we don't really have like a godlike understanding or really a godlike wisdom or really a godlike love, which is sort of, you know, compassionate. Like you can empathize with ignorance, you can empathize with fear. You realize where it's coming from because everyone's having, you know, a hell of a time on this rock. But that's something where I think naturally we're going to have to end up at anyway, because there's just so much power available to everybody that, I mean, just imagine an entity that has godlike powers but lacks any kind of wisdom or love, right? And that it's just kind of doing whatever it wants. Well, you can imagine what kind of like response that has, and I think that's really what we're seeing now with, I mean, everything from, you know, I mean, this whole show that's being peddled for reality that, you know, we call, you know, the United States. I assume everyone here is in the United States right now?
Most of us.
Okay, well, you know, over here, you know, I mean, other places are pretty bad too, like Greece and whatnot, where you have all these people without homes, yet you have all these empty homes.
Right, you have all these empty houses. you have just as many homeless people as you have empty houses. You have just as much excess crop being destroyed as you have hungry people. You have
yeah, right.
You have an imperfect system.
Yeah,
that's being peddled as the only system.
And the kind of fun thing about, like, well, when you throw this whole thing up against a video game metaphor, I want to know what's going to survive when we kind of, you know, put this metaphor out there, and if enough people look at it and consider it, I want to know what kind of ideas are going to survive. I mean, what we're putting out there isn't terribly different from some ideas in Eastern thought, like, you know, for example, Maya illusion, the world as being illusion, and things like that. In fact, we're really
the Matrix.
The Matrix. I mean, Tom is really updating metaphor, but he's not doing it in a scholarly way. He's doing it from like a personal experience that happens to be the same truth that people have encountered for centuries and millennia. You know, he's just doing it in like a very particular IT language that I think all of us really kind of understand. I mean, talking about video games, information, Wi-Fi, bandwidth, stuff like that, that's stuff that everyone kind of gets because that's our life.
If I could jump in there for a second, you were saying before about your childhood intuitions that you stumbled upon mostly in the woods, and about how those things are very hard to describe. I think they are just because of the nature of what they are, you know? They're not so objective and thingy. They're kind of ethereal and feeling like. And the great thing about Tom is that he is bringing this very mystical right brain stuff into a left brain logical Western paradigm. So, like, yeah, I mean, this is going to be, you know, earth shattering for Westerners and old hat for mystics, but to be able to explain it in this other context, to be able to express something metaphysical in a physical context, is what's breakthrough about it.
Yeah. Using computer lingo to talk about, you know, the ephemeral is like just so.
We haven't been able to have that conversation because we just didn't have computers before.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of there's a great book out there called The Information: A Theory, A History of Flood by James Gleick or Gleick. I don't know how to say his name. But in one of the later chapters, he talks about when information theory was first getting really big with Claude Shannon and I think Turing. And they had this huge convention in New York City, and everyone from every field showed up. Like, you had psychologists, you had people who were interested in, like, telephone, and I think telephone. I imagine telephone. And so they were using this new metaphor of information, and they realized they could apply it to physics, they could apply it to neuroscience, they could apply it to psychology, and that was, I don't know, like, I think that was in the 20s or 30s or something like that, I imagine. I'm not really sure.
So we're still catching up.
So, but I mean, that's it. Is that when you get a new metaphor and it's a valuable metaphor, it recontextualizes everything around it. I mean, like every enlightenment is like just a new recontextualization anyway. So, yeah.
All your base are belong to us.
Yeah.
That was in sync right there.
That's the genetics of their brotherhood coming out on that one there. You guys even sounded the same for a moment.
I think it's funny. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Stone.
I was just going to say, Elliot, Maxwell, I need to get going. We were only going to have an hour show from what I was told, so but we've definitely
Talking.
a while.
45 minutes.
Yeah, we're working on 2 hours here, but I just want to say before I go here, it has been an absolute pleasure talking with you guys. I hope that we get a chance to talk in more detail, in more depth about all of this again soon,
Yes.
and because I've definitely enjoyed this time thoroughly, and
Likewise.
Open invitation whenever y'all are ready. I mean, we're just this, we're really regular guys. Keep in touch through the Facebook if you want. Life is a Video Game, the movie, or you can follow me on Odd Edges. But everyone, keep in touch. We're here to interact.
Yeah, totally. We're down to rap about this or about games anytime.
Yeah, anything you want to talk about, definitely.
okay, cool. I'll definitely get you my information so we can communicate back and forth, but I can do that through Skype. So when you see a strange website or email come up, you'll know who it is.
Well, I always click those anyway.
Yeah, those are our favorite.
Okay, yeah, you never. Hey, more email. All right. But
Now, in my life, it's like, wait, somebody knows me?
it's either that or trying to tell me how I can lower my mortgage or sell me Viagra or something. But anyway,
Wow.
yeah, y'all get those,
It's all
those,
about houses and Viagra.
yeah, those spam ads. The bigger, the better. Anyway, before I get end here, but anyway, gentlemen, it has been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to more talking with you and sharing of ideas and thoughts. And thank you very much. And everyone who's been listening, this is Dr. Stone. Sorry I have to get going, but life calls. Take care. Have a good game.
You do.
I hate it when it happens. Life calling, jeez. I like my virtual worlds better than my real one. There's actually, you were talking about what if something disastrous happens, and it's funny you mentioned that.
Excuse me,
because-
Moab.
Oh, go ahead.
Before we get any further, I need to do my shout out, Sonny.
Oh yeah, go ahead. We forgot about that.
We have people that, Facebook pages that share us. Excuse me, great if you have shared us tonight. So, no,
No,
asthma.
she's feeling a little bit under the weather, so we apologize for this, folks.
Yes, thank you, honey. First off, it's Real Women of Call of Duty. Nerdy Chicks Are Us. Liquor Girls and Fucking Video Games. Lady Venom Slayer. Elite Skilled Gamers. Gamer Chicks Are Us. Geeking It Out. I fucking love video games. Gwen, and if you've never heard of Gwen, it's a radio show that Tyne works for, another radio show he works for, except that they play actual music on that one, and you can go in-game and play with him, excuse me, and request songs from them. And if they have it, they'll play it. Excuse me. Another thing that he's involved in is Gamers Giving Back.
Oh, wow.
It's a nice charity. So check them out. If you got anything to spare, help them out. Animation, Gaming Nation, Gamers Geekery, The Wanderer, ROM Shop, Team Rage page. Excuse me, Team Rage Clan page. Can't even get my own page name right. That's bad. Honorable Assassin Killers, Nerd's House, The Casual Gamer, Spike C. Smith Gaming, And I know I'm missing one of my pages, but that's okay. It's my page. And I'm quite sure you showed us, and you want to give a shout out to your page? Elliot or Maxwell?
Yeah, our pages, sure. We have a lot of stuff out there. I'll give you a quick list, and I hope you visit it all. The primary thing we've been talking about tonight is Life is a Video Game, the movie, which you can find on Indiegogo. We have a Twitter. We have a playlist on YouTube under Odd Edges. We have a Tumblr page, lifeisavideogame.tumblr, and we also have lifeisavideogamethemovie.com. We have a sister site, which is about all of the research that other people are doing. We've got a lot of articles and video and audio listed there. That's thisisvirtualreality.com. So that's fun. We also have like a cool 8-bit playlist that I think you'll enjoy. But there's a lot of papers and links and stuff like that talking about how the universe is a simulation, digital physics, things like that. The other things we do right off the bat is a couple other websites we have is Anti-Teachings for Young People, which is kind of jokes and Zen koans and Robert Anton Wilson, Terrence McKenna type things. I have an education thing that you should all take a look at if you have a chance called educatingearth.tumblr.com, and there's a Facebook group for that. And let's see, I think that's about the Order of Young Magicians. But let's see what else is there.
I have a Vimeo page under the name Robert Paulson.
Robert Paulson. His name is Robert Paulson on Vimeo. Please take a look at this. I'm very proud of him. Will you tell him about this real quick?
Yeah, these are basically just little creative video projects I've made. They're music videos synchronicity projects. So if you've ever heard of playing Dark Side of the Moon along with The Wizard of Oz and seeing the lyrics, sounds, and actions sync up, that's basically the whole premise. And I've done this with Jim Henson's film series, Labyrinth, Neverending Story 1 and 2, and Dark Crystal.
The Dark Crystal and Legend is coming soon.
And Legend, Elliot's helping me with Legend.
With a Wagner soundtrack.
Oh, it's absolutely great. And the sync-ups are really fun. It's great lazy thing to put on in the background, late at night, insomnia, what am I going to watch? It's quite relaxing.
And that's Robert Paulson on Vimeo, and you got to see it because it actually ends up recontextualizing all of these films which you're familiar with, but it just changes them all up and stuff. Yeah, Vimeo.com. Yeah, Vimeo.com, and search for his name is Robert Paul, or just Robert Paulson.
Oh yeah, the name. Just search artists as opposed to videos. Search Robert Paulson, and it should be the only one with a Victorian painting as the image for the profile.
We also do events in New Jersey and a radio show under Phoenix Theory. That's phoenixtheoryshop.com, and we have Facebook pages for all this stuff too. So anything I've mentioned, you'll probably find it. But Phoenix Theory is like an independent project that's gaining some steam, and it's helping our friends live in their video game under the steam of their art, which is pretty cool. And we do a lot of local music and international music now, which is pretty fun. I guess that's all our plugs.
Yeah, they want me to type the web address real quick.
Okay, yeah, cool. We're just gonna get Maxwell's awesome.
You're gonna have to type it out in Skype, and then I can post the link up directly into the chat, so they don't just have to click on it.
Awesome. Cool.
Okay, what I was gonna say earlier is you're talking about disasters and stuff like that. It's funny you say that because recently at E3, if you're still stuck in the retro world, but I'm sure you know what E3 is. But,
oh yeah, very sure. Watch it all the time.
The game The Division, Tom Clancy's The Division, was talking about Dark Winter. I don't know if you saw the trailer for that. It talks about how it was actually a real thing that people the government did, and they labeled it Dark Winter. Is what they actually did is they calculated what would happen if a smallpox virus that was chemically altered as a weapon got released in the Mall of America on Black Friday. and I guess the virus can
simulation. Right?
This was just
just simulation. But the point of this was that basically by day 5 we're in utter chaos. Like there's no one left that's not sick, that could run like our international trade, so that would stop at like day 3, and that's a pretty crazy thing. And the scary part about it is that millions of people will be infected before the first person gets a sore throat. That's the crazy thing. And because even if it's just a normal flu virus, like the video is actually, they said flu virus, but the real Dark Winter is they talked about a weapon of smallpox if it was ever used. But the video talks about how flu virus can stay alive on a banknote for up to 17 days, and it's actually fact. And basically the game is that you're one of the agents or whatever that is the terror relief plan during one of these apocalypse. So it's kind of an apocalypse now scenario, but it's not like your average everyday scenario. Like now all of our apocalypse scenarios is zombies, everything. You can find zombies everywhere. Now it's just like a normal flu virus where people are sick constantly, which is awesome. Actually, I kind of like the idea of people not trying to eat my face every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
just getting really sick and tired and demotivated.
Yeah. Everyone's preparing us for cannibalism instead of just like normal disease.
Yeah, what's with that? What's with the cannibalism push?
Yeah, I feel like I'm more prepared for a zombie apocalypse than anything else that happens in my life.
Yeah, you know, there's the whole zombie thing. I think that has to do with some kind of like self-hatred type of thing. I mean, because like you're like dead but alive, and you kill. I mean,
it's a dehumanizing.
It's like a dehumanized state of, but it's still a human being. I mean, I don't know. I'm always kind of like, I don't get the whole. I mean, I get it. The whole disaster fixation. I mean, when you take a look at just, I mean, I don't know. I'm like 26. So I don't remember, I don't know what the geopolitical scheme was like on a day-to-day basis in the media, you know, in the 90s. I was watching, you know, like Nickelodeon and stuff like that. But
Saturday night cartoons.
Yeah, Nick too. Yeah, Snick, Snick and all that, Clarissa, all that good stuff. But
Thanatos complex.
Thanatos complex. Yeah, exactly. It's a Thanatos complex. Like there's this whole,
and the economy's dying.
Yeah, everything's dying, and it's just kind of like, well, this is so boring. You know, the disasters are boring. The wars are boring. I mean, I'm not saying that they're boring in the sense, like, I'm just saying, trivial. Like, it makes me think of that book, The Banality of Evil. Like, this is all just so lame. When you consider, like, what consciousness is actually capable of and what your own, like you could devote it to anything. And there's so many people out there who are just hell-bent on devoting it to, you know, I mean, like, you know, order out of chaos, in other words. I mean, just to give it a blanket state, like, here's your bread and circus and here's your order out of chaos. Everything is a disaster. And it's just sort of like, why aren't we doing the Star Trek business right here?
Yeah.
You know, the Star Trek business is on point. The Gene Roddenberry had it down, where it's like, okay, no, we're going to better ourselves, we're going to end different kinds of prejudices, but, you know, at the same time experience this new cosmic one, we'll end disease, we'll end hunger, and all that. But with the computer age, none of that is impossible. In fact, the only thing stopping it are pre-internet models. All the pre-internet models are actually holding back the real internet society. And I don't mean like cyborgs walking around with Google Glass. That's crap. That's crap. When you consider like the fact that you could use, you know, one of those, I forgot what they're called, but the idea is that you put in a chip or a game or something like that, and a processor scans it, and then it puts out a piece of hardware. It designs a piece of hardware that no human being could ever do. Like, all our cell phones are designed by computers, like, through these efficiency algorithms. So it's kind of like, if you set up what you needed a city to be, you know, kind of like, I don't know, Venus Project-ish, you know, you set up what a city needs to be, you tell the computer, all right, give us the best city you can. It's going to design you one that's, like, way more efficient than, like, this medieval. I mean, a friend of mine came in from Germany. He looked at all the street wires that we have hanging from the streets. He's like, this is medieval, man. You know, like, why isn't this stuff underground? My electricity went out here in New Jersey, and I'm like, we don't do that in Germany. So, I mean, I'm bored. I'm honestly really bored by what passes for civilization in the Western world. It does nothing for me. You know, that's a rant.
And kind of, that reminded me of something Slavo says. It's like,
Zizek.
I'm gonna... adapt it slightly, is we can imagine the Star Trek society. We can imagine, like, okay, let's just, for starters, money is gone, like, there's no war on the planet, people are just out in space, like, bettering themselves. People can imagine that, and they can imagine the world ending.
Right.
But they can't imagine the end of capitalism or the end of
Yeah,
like, the
amazing.
current Western Hollywood type.
Yeah,
model.
or any ideology made in the last 100, 120 years. Like, we kind of had our breakthrough, like with Keynesian economics or even communism. Like these are the best ideas out there. Like, I mean, with the internet and all this stuff and 3D printing, it's just sort of like, are we even going to need money? Robots are going to take over our jobs. Do we even need like a political class anymore? Like, what are they doing? They're just stopping the pirate party, which is what should exist anyway. So, what's the point?
And we've got 3 minutes left into the show.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we got like a real world rant in there.
Yeah.
I was gonna plug in real quick another famous movie. We're gonna end up like it's gonna be on that movie Idiocracy.
Right.
It's pretty messed up movie. Not gonna lie. I don't think we're gonna get that dumb as they claim to be on that movie. But you know what? It's out there. It could happen. I mean, if robots do everything, honestly, we need someone to program those robots. I don't think within the next 200 years we're gonna be watering our plants with Gatorade anytime soon. But
No.
it's got electrolytes. It's what plants crave.
Yeah. Fluoride. You're watering it with fluoride.
But you know what? That whole thing is like, it's not going to take an army of retail slaves to program a robot. You know, it's just going to take a couple of geniuses.
Yeah, and
It takes a couple of geniuses to do the work of an army of retail slaves.
Is there anybody that you guys want to say thank you to?
Everybody.
I would mainly just like to say thank you to Tom and
I would say Tom, Keith, Donna, the whole
Keith and
MBT
Donna.
forum, all my friends and family, the people I know, the people I don't know, the people I've bumped into on the road. I mean, I would thank everybody because we're all in this together.
all our friends on Facebook for reposting and sharing all of our stuff. I
Yeah.
greatly appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like there's like so much love to go around. There is no way to name them all. I mean, it's everybody. You know, we are who we've bumped into. We all are. It's Pink Floyd. You know, it's Pink Floyd. It's, you know.
I'd also like to just say thanks to John McDevitt, our producer,
Yeah, yeah.
and Jennifer Palmer for
Yeah.
helping us produce our YouTube video.
And Maged for helping to shoot. I mean, there's just so much love. There's just so much love. I can't thank you. Actually, thank all of y'all.
Yeah, we
very much.
really appreciate the exposure and a chance to stretch our legs verbally and intellectually with you guys.
Yeah, and hang out with you. Like, you guys are all good. Yeah, much beauty.
Yeah, I
much
had a lot
love.
of fun.
This is awesome. Yeah, please, we want to do it again. This would be great.
Well, it's been our pleasure, honey, and I love helping new people try and get their foot out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Much obliged. We do appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank you guys for coming on the show. It's real fun talking to you, even though most of them are over 6 syllables, but it's alright, I understood you. And thank you for all of our listeners and viewers. Hope you liked it. Don't forget to hit that follow button if you're on Twitch TV. And go ahead and go to their Indiegogo page if you have $1 so you can get your name in the high scores. Go ahead and do that. I posted it. I posted it in a link. You guys can go there. Yeah, so, and that's thank you all again.
Love
Peace,
you.
guys.
Peace with.
Thanks again.
Later.
And well, I think Lady Rage has something to say.
Coco, you want to say goodnight, honey?
Yep. Thanks, guys. It's been awesome.
Absolutely, our pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Coco. Awesome.
Time.
I've never been interviewed over a Star Trek game before.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Thank you guys for coming on. I got one question for you guys before you leave.
You got it.
What makes something wrong?
That's controversial. Like, I don't think you should.
Oh, I love that. I love that. What makes something wrong? What makes something wrong is
Usually a glitch or an error. No.
Yeah. You mean like morally wrong?
Any of it, like, because right now we see like all these things wrong, where in the past some of these things are correct or were accepted anyways. And is it society that makes things wrong, or is it
Well, I
actual
suppose
proof
any-
that's wrong?
Any right or wrong would have to pertain to a consciousness that's experiencing this activity, and therefore what makes something wrong is whether or not it contributes to the ultimate fundamental learning and lowering the entropy of a particular consciousness.
Yeah, the only thing that could be considered quote-unquote wrong is anything that sort of doesn't, that increases entropy, that comes between an entity and the fundamental process of evolution. But as for wrong, like, wrong is just what's not true, and what's true is just the patterns, the trends that keep repeating. That's basically truth. That's as far as we can get to truth. It's like the truth is this pattern that's continued. But wrong as in models, I mean, like, if the model does well, then it does well. If it answers questions, it answers questions. I mean, if it's just an outright lie, it's just an outright lie. But that would be it. Morally wrong is anything that I think would compromise the development of your being or another's. But sometimes, like, that works.
That's
like,
part of the lesson.
Sometimes that's
making that
part of the
mistake.
lesson is making the mistake. So wrong I think is sort of like knowing better and doing worse kind of thing, maybe. But even then, like, sometimes you just gotta bend.
So basically, your idea of there being a wrong is pretty much the only thing.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a wrong. But thank you. That's a great question. That's the best question we've gotten so far, I think. A hard one.